Yeah, I just started the YouTube live. Miss Jackson, this is going to be your first, I'm sorry, your preliminary hearing here in Magistrate Court of Clayton County. My name is Brad Gardner. I'm going to be the judge that's presiding over this hearing. I have to caution you that this proceeding is not private or privileged, so anything you say can be used against you. So please don't discuss the facts of your case, and don't say anything you wouldn't want the whole world to know. Okay, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. I'm calling the case of State of Georgia versus Chrisanne Faith Jackson. She's charged in warrant number 2021 CW 55527 with committing the offense of homicide by vehicle in the first degree. We have Mr. James Michael here representing Ms. Jackson, and we have Kimberly Myers here on behalf of the state. Ms. Myers, you may swear your witness in and present your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Aaron Faulkner. Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you can lower your hand. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Sure. It's Aaron, Aaron, Faulkner, Faulkner.
And how are you currently employed?
Clayton County Police Department.
And what's your role and your rank in Clayton County Police Department?
I'm a detective assigned to the traffic unit, investigate serious injury and fatality accidents.
Okay, and what's the name of that unit?
It's the traffic unit, specifically the STAR team.
Okay, and as part of that unit, have you received specialized training related to vehicle crash scene investigation specifically?
I have.
Can you just give us a little bit of background on that, please?
Sure. I've got on-scene accident investigations level 1 and 2. I've got accident reconstructions level 1 through 5. I have pedestrian collision investigation. I have motorcycle collision investigation. I have CDR data removal technician.
And were you employed and holding all of those qualifications, employed in your present capacity and holding all those qualifications on October 27, 2021?
I was.
And on that date, around 6:45 p.m., did you and fellow officers have occasion to respond to a 3-car crash on I-75 northbound near the Fielder Road overpass?
We did.
Okay, is that in Clayton County?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the speed limit on that stretch of road?
65.
I'm sorry?
65.
65?
65, yes.
Thank you. Now, when you all arrived on the scene, what you located 3 cars and 3 drivers involved in the crash, correct?
Right there's it was yes.
Okay. There was a white Hyundai Azera involved, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and who was that vehicle driven by?
And driven by Miss Jackson.
The defendant, Miss Chrisanne Jackson? I'm sorry, your audio cut out.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, and do you see her present in this Zoom court session today? Your audio cut out again.
I do.
Okay, can you please describe her, what she's wearing, and I guess what her little Zoom box is labeled as, if you can see that.
Labeled as Clayton County Jail. She has appears to be a dark blue shirt with a white t-shirt and a white mask.
Your Honor, ask that the record please reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
You can proceed.
Thank you. So the white Hyundai Azera is one of the cars involved, and you said that was driven by the defendant. Were there any other occupants in that vehicle?
No, so single occupant, single driver.
Okay, and she admitted that she was the driver?
Yeah, she stated she was the driver.
Okay. And did you check on the status of her driver's license?
Oh, we did. She was found to have a CP class license, which is a provisional permit.
Okay, and is that the same thing as a learner's permit?
Basically, yes, a learner's permit. She must have a licensed driver over the age of 21 in the vehicle with her.
Okay, and you already said she was the sole occupant and driver, so she was not legally or operating that vehicle at that time, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did Miss Jackson have any apparent injuries?
No,
Okay. And where was her vehicle located when you all arrived on scene?
it had come to rest just past the Fielder Road overpass and split between the lane 2 and 3, kind of a sideways position.
Okay. Still on the roadway though, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did she, on scene, did she tell you, make any statements about what had happened?
On scene, she said that she had tried to change lanes, and the second vehicle, the gold Cadillac, had struck her in the rear as she was changing lanes.
Okay. And she claimed that she knew anything else about what happened?
No, she just stated that when she changed lanes, he came up and struck.
Okay. Now that second vehicle you referenced, the gold Cadillac, where did that vehicle end up?
The vehicle came to rest off the roadway, down an embankment in a grove of trees.
Okay. And who was the driver of that vehicle?
I forget the gentleman's name. Can I refresh my memory? His name was Anthony Smith.
Anthony Smith?
That's correct, Anthony Smith.
Okay. And that Vanthony, like Anthony with a V at the beginning?
That's correct.
Okay. And was he the only occupant of that gold Cadillac?
That's correct.
Okay. What injuries, if any, did he sustain?
He was deceased at the scene.
Okay. Due to injuries sustained in this accident?
That's correct. He was entrapped in the vehicle and deceased at that time.
Okay. And what about the third vehicle involved?
The third vehicle was a black Honda Civic being driven by Janet Jones.
Okay.
Her vehicle came to rest off the roadway. She had no apparent visible injuries, but she was transported for further treatment.
Okay. She complained of some injuries, even though you all couldn't see any, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And she was taken to the hospital via ambulance?
Yes.
Okay. Did she make any statements about what happened?
She did, but she stated that she didn't see anything because the position where she was struck would have been just behind her head to the on the left side. So she didn't see anything until the collision.
Okay. So she just was suddenly struck from the rear driver's side, and that's all she knew?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Did you also speak to a witness named Julio Barahona on scene?
I did. Well, he had provided a written statement at the time, but I actually spoke with him on the telephone the next day.
Okay. He spoke to other officers on scene, though, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what did he advise that he observed?
He had told other officers that it appeared that the two vehicles being driven, Mr. Smith and Miss Jackson, were racing prior to the collision.
Okay. And was he also traveling on this roadway?
He was traveling in the number 3 lane, which would be the lane just to the left of what is called the slow lane. He stated he was traveling in a work truck. He sees 2 sets of headlights approaching at a high rate of speed. They appear to be racing. He stated his first thought was, they're going so fast, I need to get out of their way. But then he was afraid if he got over to the right in slow lane, that might even cause a wreck. So he stayed in the lane he was in.
Okay. And what did the cars do, according to Mr. Barahona?
He stated that as he stayed in his lane, both vehicles split or separated, went around him. One went to his left, one went to his right. He stated spontaneously that they went by so fast that it made his truck shake. He said after they passed him, both vehicles returned back to what appeared to be the same lane that he was traveling in. They both came together, and that started the wreck.
Okay. So they go around Mr. Barahona, who's in the second from the right lane, and then start to both enter that same lane after they pass him.
That's correct.
And that's when they started wrecking. Okay. And based on your conversation with the witnesses and the evidence on scene, where was Miss Jones's vehicle positioned? Was she?
So the witness also states while this is going on, he also sees Miss Jones up ahead of him in some distance in the slow lane, which would be to his right traveling. So he sees that vehicle. So he states after these two vehicles came together and wrecked, they went off to the right and then struck Mrs. Jones' vehicle.
Okay. So Mr. Smith's vehicle and the defendant's vehicle hit each other, and then they proceed to hit Miss Jones' vehicle as well.
That's correct.
And from there, Mr. Smith and Miss Jones' vehicles leave the roadway, and the defendant's vehicle goes forward in the roadway.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, did you also examine the evidence on the scene?
That's correct.
Okay. And was that evidence consistent with the account that you had gathered from Miss Jones and Mr. Smith, or I'm sorry, Miss Jones and Mr. Barahona?
It is. This was a large accident scene, which indicates it was a high energy scene, which, energy is speed. So there was a lot of speed involved just from the size of the crash scene and the damage done to the vehicles.
Okay. And you examined the vehicles themselves as well, correct?
That's correct. We did a vehicle inspection.
And with the exception of Mr. Smith's vehicle, which I understand was damaged too far to really make out specific points of impact, was the other damage that you observed to the other vehicles consistent with the witness's account of the incident?
It is.
Okay. Did you also obtain search warrants for the airbag control module and electronic data recorder data from all three vehicles involved?
That's correct. I did.
Okay. And what of significance did the data from those vehicles show?
It's significant because the way those modules record data is they do a count backward from the event. Typically, they'll do 5 seconds prior to the event. So we have some historical data. So when we pulled the EDR from the Hyundai and the ACM from the Cadillac, which counts back usually 5 seconds, maybe more, from the zero event, which is the firing of the airbag, both vehicles were traveling well in excess of 100 miles an hour. Okay.
They were actually both going between about 119 and 122, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And at about 5 seconds before the crash, both Mr. Smith's Cadillac and the defendant's Hyundai were both going about 120 or 120 to 122.
That's correct. So when you pull data from the Hyundai's present their data in kilometers per mile, kilometers per hour as opposed to mile per hour, so you convert that by putting 1 kilometer per hour is equal to 0.621 miles per hour. So she was doing 5 seconds out. She was doing 120.5. She actually steps down a little bit to the 120 at 4 seconds out, 121 at 3 seconds out, 119 at 2 seconds out. At 1 second out from the collision, she was doing 119, and at impact, she was doing 121, and she never touched the brakes.
Okay. Did the data show that Mr. Smith had applied his brakes prior to the crash?
I'll have to look to refresh my memory, but it appears he applied his just prior, maybe a half second out or 2 seconds out. But his speed is similar to hers.
Okay. But the data from her vehicle definitely showed that she did not apply her brakes prior to the crash.
Surface brake doesn't show her being applied at all.
And Miss Jones' Honda, that was traveling at a pretty constant speed, around 77 miles an hour before being struck.
That's correct. Her speed is constant and is approximately mid 70s.
So after examining all the evidence, were you able to conclude whether the manner in which the defendant and Mr. Smith were driving was an approximate cause of this collision?
That's correct. The speed limit there is 65 miles an hour. They're doing almost twice the speed limit.
Okay. And after obtaining all this evidence and speaking to witnesses, were you able to determine was the evidence that you received consistent with those two vehicles racing each other, trying to outpace each other.
It is, especially the historical data that shows them so similar. And then also the witness statement that was his first inclination was that I've got two vehicles that are racing coming up behind with the crash data and the way they came together indicates they were racing.
And after you obtained the data from the cars and spoken to the witnesses, examined all the evidence here, you actually followed up with the defendant on November 9th, 2021, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And at that point, even after you telling her that you had obtained that data, she still lied at that point about what had happened and claimed to be going about 80 miles an hour at the time of this incident.
That's the speech she provided. And when we tried to have her elaborate, she stated she was trying to hit the event and just move past it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You broke up there for me.
We asked her to if she could elaborate, and she said she was just trying to forget the event and move past it because it had been very, very traumatic for her.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. No further questions this time. Thank you.
Mr. Michael?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Faulkner, my name is Jim Michael. I represent Miss Jackson. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Let me stay right there. You mentioned that you interviewed Miss Jackson on the 9th of November. So that's roughly 12, 13 days after the accident?
I assume, yes, sir.
All right. Was that you alone or were you with other detectives at the time of the interview?
That was myself and my lieutenant.
And where did that take place, the interview?
It took place at her residence, her home.
Was anyone else present at the time of the interview? Any family of Miss Jackson's?
Her mother and her brother.
And was that interview recorded, memorialized?
It was recorded on body cam footage.
And I'm assuming that's your body cam footage or also your lieutenant's?
Both, yes.
When you say that Miss Jackson didn't want to elaborate, that she was trying to forget the event, tell me sort of how that dialogue plays out. Did you present her with the information from the recorder and the module?
We didn't give her the exact numbers, but we explained to her what kind of data is provided when you image the EDR to all the different data points before we asked her to elaborate. Is there anything that she wanted to let us know?
And did she elaborate at all? Did she tell you anything about what transpired leading up to the accident?
No, she started to give us a speed and said she was traveling around 80. Then she became slightly emotional, and then her mother also spoke that she'd been having trouble sleeping and they're just trying to move past it.
Did her mother or her brother add anything else to the conversation? Tell you anything about what they remember about the event?
Well, no, the brother obviously wasn't there. I think he may have interjected to the mother and to Miss Jackson that we would know that we knew the speed or something to that effect. Something about what we may know that she should say whatever she knew to us if she knew anything. And the mother stated that the reason that she was traveling that direction was she was going to pick up some food for her.
Did you ask the mom to elaborate on that? Going to pick up food, why then, who it was for, anything along those lines?
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point based on relevance. These family members weren't present during the actual accident. I don't think that that's relevant to the charges here.
Overruled.
Thank you, Judge.
Witness may answer.
The mother stated that she was going to the Quick Trip on Mount Zion to pick up some soup, I believe, from her brother, which would be food for the mother.
And when the mother shared this information with you, did Miss Jackson then expand on that? Did she agree with it? Did she add anything to that?
Didn't really add anything to that.
I'm sorry, sir.
Didn't add anything to that.
You mentioned that Miss Jackson was also interviewed on scene. Was that by you or was that by responding officers or both?
Both. A responding officer spoke with her initially. I spoke with her when I arrived on scene. I asked if she would fill out a written statement, which she did, and then spoke briefly with me. And then I also told her that at that time she could contact a ride. I think she'd already called her mother to pick her up at that time.
So there's a written statement by Miss Jackson
That's correct.
that was completed at the time of or shortly after the accident.
That's correct.
And I'm assuming those conversations she had with you and the responding officers, were those also memorialized on body cam?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. The defense is fishing for, what evidence exists in the case. He'll have an opportunity for discovery at a later date.
Overruled. Witness may answer.
I'm assuming, I can't speak for other officers wearing their body cam when they spoke to her. They had them on. Typically, as an on-call officer out, I may not be wearing my body cam. At that particular time, I didn't have a body cam.
Okay. So you have no body cam footage from the scene with regard to interviewing Miss Jackson, or I guess anyone else at that time? Yourself?
Myself, no, I have no body cam footage.
But there may be footage from other officers who responded.
That's correct. There were several officers on scene.
In terms of the on-scene investigation, do you separately video record the vehicles in the resting place and any other evidence there on the interstate?
We don't videotape it. We will have it photographed, and then we'll also do forensic mapping with a Faro scanner.
Okay. Did you actually do the photographs, or do you direct someone else to do that?
I direct someone else. The county uses a private company.
And that was done. And then what was the second part of that again? I'm sorry.
The second part of that is we utilize a Faro scanner to forensically map the scene. And so that was done as well.
Is that done by you, or is that also done through a third party or other members of law enforcement?
In this particular instance, it was done by me.
The other individuals, Miss Jones and I believe it was Mr. Burhana. Mr. Burhana gave a written statement. Do you know if he also gave a recorded statement?
Your Honor, again, I'm going to object to this line of questioning. If he wants to question the detective about what the witnesses said, that seems appropriate, but he's just trying to find out what all evidence they collected. That's not relevant to probable cause.
Okay, Ms. Myers, I'm going to overrule again. This is a hearing. He's not asking questions that are not unrelated to the accident. The witness may answer.
You need me to repeat that, sir?
Please.
How about I do it this way? Mr. Burhana, he gave you a written statement at the scene, correct?
That's correct.
And then you spoke to him the next day?
That's correct.
Was that a recorded statement?
No, that was by telephone.
By telephone, and the conversation itself was not recorded. It was just you and him talking on the phone?
It's just me and him, but it's my understanding that all phone lines out of our headquarters are recorded.
All right. And Miss Jones was interviewed at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I arrived, she was in an ambulance on a stretcher.
Okay. She was then transported to the hospital. Has anyone spoken to her since the date of the accident, to your knowledge?
I have. I've spoken with her, gone to her residence and her place of employment.
All right. And was that conversation you had with her, was that also recorded, the follow-up conversation?
No.
Other than Miss Jones, Mr. Burhana, and my client, was anyone else interviewed about the accident, to your knowledge?
There was a citizen who stopped, who he witnessed the smoke and the vehicle sliding. He didn't see the accident. He stopped and had a work type truck with amber strobes on it. So he pulled in behind Miss Jackson's car so she wouldn't be struck. He provided a short written statement. I spoke with him briefly.
Okay. He essentially was, I guess, protecting her vehicle from getting hit, but really has nothing to add to the actual accident. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Miss Jackson gave her statement to you on the 9th. She was not taken into custody that day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. After speaking to her, you then applied for the warrants that she was arrested on. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Did you serve those warrants on her?
No, I did not.
All right. But you were aware that she was taken into custody within a short period of time of you obtaining those warrants. Is that right?
That's right. After I obtained the warrants, I gave her mother a courtesy call to explain what had been done so she could make arrangements.
Okay. And from what you know, there was no issue as far as her being arrested, taken into custody, anything along those lines, correct?
I know nothing after I called the mother and advised
Okay.
her warrants.
Okay. And no subsequent interview was conducted after she was taken into custody, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Just a couple more questions, Detective. You had indicated that the vehicles were inspected. The vehicle that Miss Jackson was driving, the white Hyundai, was that towed to a record service or a record yard?
That's correct. All three vehicles were taken to the New Image lot off of Old Dixie Highway.
Okay. And I'm assuming they were all inspected and photographed. Did that happen at both the accident scene and to where they ended up, or one of the other locations?
That's correct. So photographs were taken at the scene of all vehicles. Photographs were taken of all three vehicles when they're inspected at the New Image lot.
And I don't mean to be redundant. I know Ms. Myers was very thorough, but looking at the vehicles and assessing what the witnesses told you, is it fair to say that at the time of the accident, Miss Jackson's vehicle is in front of the vehicle driven by Mr. Smith, the deceased?
No, because there's also damage. There's paint transfer on Mrs. Jackson's A-pillar, her left A-pillar, which is the pillar that's as you look at your windshield to your left, the piece of metal, there's gold paint transfer there. So at some point, those two vehicles made contact almost side by side.
I understand. Okay. Okay. And I'm assuming all of this is documented in a supplemental report that you prepared or plan to prepare.
That's correct. The case file is complete and those observations are in there.
All right. Thank you, sir. Those are all the questions I have.
Yes, sir.
Any redirect, Ms. Myers?
Briefly, Your Honor. Miss Jackson's home, do you recall the address of that location?
Her residence?
Yes.
I'd have to look it up. I don't recall.
Okay. It would referencing your report refresh your memory on that?
It would. It was in McDonough somewhere, but I don't have the street. I can refresh my memory if you like.
Please.
Would you detective, give the street name and the city and zip, but not the actual number? This is on the internet, and I don't know what people will do.
That's okay, sir. So it was Durham Terrace in McDonough.
Okay. And according to the defendant's mother, the defendant was going to get soup at a Quick Trip, soup for her mom at a Quick Trip on Mount Zion Boulevard.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that's about 25 miles away, correct?
From their residence, that's correct.
Okay. And requires her getting on the interstate, correct? Well,
The most expedient way would be the
okay. There were stores, grocery stores, and even Quick Trips much closer to their residence than that Quick Trip that was about 25 miles away on Mount Zion Boulevard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. May this witness be excused.
The state would ask that he be excused, Your Honor.
No
Thank you.
objection.
Thank you, Detective Faulkner. You're free to go, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other witnesses, Ms. Myers?
No, Your Honor, just argument.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Michael?
No evidence, Your Honor, and we would submit at this point.
Okay.
The state would submit on the evidence as well then.
Okay. Well, after listening to the testimony, I find that there is sufficient evidence to bind this case over to the Superior Court of Clayton County. Specifically, I'm relying upon the testimony of Officer Faulkner as to the speed of the vehicles and witness statements that they appear to be, at least to the witness, Mr. Bruhana, appeared to be racing. Is there anything else for this case?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Michael, you are free to go, sir. Ms. Jackson can go back.
And Judge, before I leave, just to confirm, I believe we are scheduled for bond on the 17th, 2 days from now. In fact, it may be back in front of you.
That's correct.
All right.
Judges, remember that's not remembered because it's a.
Yes.
I'm sorry. You know what? No, this is a
It's a
homicide.
15. It's a 15
sorry.
year. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, it is on Friday's calendar.
Okay. Mr. Michael, do you plan on presenting witnesses on that day?
I may present a family member or two, but I don't know yet, Judge.
Okay, so and the reason I ask that is that sometimes people give out the link to family members, and we would prefer if the person is not testifying that they watch this on YouTube. Okay.
Understood.
All right. Thank you,
And
sir.
Judge, also could I add that that the attorney not give the link to any potential witnesses until it's time for that person to testify.
Yes. So if you're going to call them, have them on standby, because as you see, there's a lot of moving parts in the things that we do, and we'll give you time to have them log on. Okay.
Understood, Judge. I learned that lesson about a year ago, so that's not an issue.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Myers, do you have any other cases?
I do not, Your Honor. May I be excused?
Yes, ma'am. It was nice to meet you. Have a good day.
You as well.
Okay, where are we, Ms. Freeman?
Well, I think Attorney Bixon, I'm not sure if he had a chance to speak with his client in the jail. And I think Mr. Rogers needed to speak to his clients also in the jail.